For everybody on the line, we are going to be recording today's webinar, and I've started the recording so that you're aware. This webinar will be recorded and we will be able to provide you a link for it afterwards. My name is Valerie Borak and I am with Plumbline Consulting, and today you're going to be attending a webinar on the Integrity Data's ACA SL edition. And this software is being presented to you today by Dan Doolin with Integrity Data. He's going to go over all the nice bells and whistles this product has to offer, and at the end of the webinar we'll be able to answer questions, whether it be in your chat box. You can post your questions there and we can answer them for you. We will also be sending out follow-up information once the webinar is over. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Dan, and he is going to present to you the Integrity Data's ACA SL Edition software. Dan?
Wonderful. Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate the introduction. I appreciate you all taking time out of your day to join our webinar. We're happy that you can attend. As Valerie mentioned, today we're going to be looking through the Integrity Data ACA Compliance and Reporting Solution, the SL edition. So it's going to be specific for you as Dynamics SL customers. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our agenda for today. Just a few bullet points there. So big topic areas. We're going to do a quick introduction, just give you some additional information about Integrity Data if you're not familiar with us. We'll talk about why employers utilize the Integrity ACA solution that we're going to show you today. We're going to do a pretty lengthy demonstration of that. We'll spend about 25 to 30 minutes actually going through the demonstration, so certainly more demonstration than PowerPoints. We'll talk about the next steps you can take to learn more, or since it's getting close to getting back into the filing season for ACA compliance, if you would like to get pricing information and move forward, we'll talk about how to do that. And then, of course, we'll have time. We're going to leave plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the webinar today. We're going to try to leave at least 15 minutes for that. And so if you have questions, as Valerie mentioned, you can put those into the chat box or into the question and answer box on your GoToWebinar console. We'll answer all of those verbally at the end of the webinar today. All right, introduction. If you're not familiar with Integrity Data, we've been around for 20 years. We've been focused on payroll and human resources. We've worked a lot in the Dynamics channel, more so within the areas of Dynamics GP and some of the other product lines. We've done a little bit of work related to Dynamics SL as well. But the ACA solution that we provide is used widely throughout, I guess, the industry. The United States is probably the better word, by all employers. Employers that use really all payroll systems. But with our focus on the Dynamics areas, we've got a component with Dynamics GP. This is the SL edition. So we'll be integrated with Dynamics SL. And so, like I said, we've been around for 20 years, focused on payroll and human resources. And of course, the Affordable Care Act is a very important topic for compliance as it relates to payroll and human resources. And because of that, we've been immersed in ACA compliance since 2012. I'll give you a little bit more background information related to that here in just a second. But in that process, we've helped over 1,000 employers process nearly 2 million employees through ACA compliance, tracking and reporting to those employees and to the Internal Revenue Service. And of course, we're going to spend a lot of time showing you how we help employers. All right, a little bit of that background information. We began 4.5 years ago, almost 5 now, in January of 2012, really helping employers focus on managing risk related to ACA. And a lot of that just has to do with understanding which employees need to be offered coverage. There's a lot of tools out there that will help employers take the data that you've spent a lot of time creating and put it onto a form and do things like that. We call them fill-a-form solutions, or just kind of the reporting component. And what we've always liked to do is help employers through the entire process. So throughout the year, understanding who you're going to be tracking, who do you need to track, who do you even need to comply, understanding which employees need to be offered coverage, really making sure you're compliant throughout the year, as well as simplifying that reporting process at year end also. So that's why. So that's dictated by, or evident in our background of starting in the area of risk management throughout the year. And as you can see, we went through the process here of just like everybody else, trying to understand what it is that the IRS wants us all to do, and try to get technology to help us with that as we go through those processes. And that's still an ongoing effort and will continue to be. But as you can see, in October of 2015, that's a year ago already, we were one of the first employers or first organizations to produce an e-file that employers could submit in, and we've obviously since refined that process also. But always trying to be on the front end of helping employers through the process and helping stay up to speed with the IRS changes and new guidelines related to ACA compliance, so we can pass on that technology as well as that information to the employers that we're working with. So that's a little bit of introduction and background information. Let's start to turn our focus onto the solution that we provide and why employers are utilizing it and liking it. All right, first of all, it's easy to use. So easy and ACA are two terms that rarely go together. And so what we're trying to do is help you do two things. One is be compliant and avoid penalties. Okay. Number two is not spend way too much time trying to do that or doing it incorrectly. So it's really a two-step process. One is it's got to be complete, but it's got to be easy for you. Make the Affordable Care Act compliance effort within your organization easy. I'm going to, of course, talk about how to do that. So what does that mean? Quick onboarding, okay, of getting it set up for you. Business intelligence at a glance, really understanding who needs to be offered coverage quickly, and you'll see some alerts and things like that that help you do that. Role-based security. Don't have to worry about software updates because the system is a hosted solution, as you'll see. And of course, smooth handoff of year-end IRS forms, whether that's e-filing, whether that's utilizing our fulfillment services options to be able to have the 1095-Cs printed and mailed to your employees by a third party. We're going to handle all of that for you and help you go through a smooth process related to those. The ACA solution that we provide is comprehensive, meaning that it will help you with everything from understanding which employees you need to offer coverage to, understanding when there's an affordability concern, producing forms, as well as going through the electronic filing process if you're required to do so. In addition, one of the areas we get a lot of positive feedback on as an organization, and especially related to ACA compliance, is our support components. So having ACA fluent support. And again, you'll see that in a couple of ways. One, if you're using the system and have a question, you'll get experience with that. Secondly, is even before that, you'll see all the information that we provide related to ACA to help support you even from a ACA knowledge point of view, to know that you're doing things correctly, understanding new rules, new codes, and things that are changing. And as I mentioned, if you have questions about using the system, you have support related to that also. The solution we provide is proven and reliable. So far we talked about it being easy, comprehensive, proven and reliable. The system, as you saw, has been sort of in process since 2012. And so it's starting to become a mature solution. Even in the last 2 years, it's really matured a lot. But the key is that it's reliable and that it produces good information and you don't have to worry about it. And so that really comes as a testament from the employers that we've worked with so far and some of the things they've had to say about utilizing the solution that we provide. And of course, it has to be affordable. I won't get into the discussion about affordability and Affordable Care Act and those types of things, but what we want to do, again, is provide you with a way that you can easily comply with the Affordable Care Act without it being a huge burden internally and administratively. So doing it as efficiently as possible. And a lot of that's done through automation. significantly less in-house work. For example, related to ACA compliance, you should never have to touch each individual employee from an ACA perspective. It's going to, as we get into the details here, it's going to utilize your payroll data in your configuration that you do through a wizard to determine what codes should go on that Form 1095-C for a specific employee. That's not something you'll have to figure out, so that's going to save you a lot of time. Access to expertise, being able to call our team for support, to be able to utilize our knowledge base and our user groups and things like that related to ACA compliance. And of course the big one is help avoid penalties for non-compliance, which of course can be steep. Those penalties can be steep. So we want to make sure that you're proactive in staying compliant throughout the year, help you through the reporting process. And I think a big key is that you feeling confident that you're doing it well and doing it correctly throughout the year. A lot of you might be in a position right now where you're like, wow, we know in less than 90 days we've got to have 1095-Cs out to the to the employees. That's going to be a lot of work. We're still a little fuzzy on how to come up with the codes. If you know that you have a system in place that's really going to walk you through that process, that's going to take a lot of stress off of you and make your role much easier within your organization. All right, so we've successfully whipped through the PowerPoints. Now we're going to do a demonstration. And again, this is where we're going to spend 25 to 30 minutes going through the demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that now. And what you'll see is that we're operating within a browser. Okay, so it's all a hosted solution. If you're a technical person, it's running on a Microsoft Azure platform. And if you're a sophisticated technical person, it's running on Microsoft Azure. But since I'm from the Midwest, and a lot of you probably are as well, we just call it Azure. Okay. Anyway, a little joke there about the naming of the technology behind it, but it's Microsoft's hosting platform. Azure SQL behind it, very secure, one of the most secure hosted platforms that money can buy. Microsoft spends $1 billion per year just in security related to their Azure platform and so on. So it's good to know that this information is safe as you're using it. All right, so what you see on the screen here is a dashboard. Now obviously this is an environment that I've already set up, I've already gone through the configuration, I've already gone through, I've already got my data here, and so I think, well, you know, that you kind of gloss over that stuff. Well, I want to talk about those two components for a minute because those are really the prerequisites. One is configuration, so we're going to talk about what that means, and two is data components that are necessary. All right, so let's talk about configuration first. Configuration is really done through a wizard, and I'm going to show you some of the configuration components on the left-hand side. But as you first deploy this, as you first log in, under the to-dos, you'll see an implementation wizard. And that implementation wizard will walk you through a series of questions that will say, when does your plan year start? Okay, so you might put 1/1 or 6/1 or whatever your plan year is. And then it's going to go to the next question of how many days do you typically need for your enrollment process or your administrative period. Are you is your organization part of an ALE group, or ALE, yeah, are you a member of an ALE group? So do you have more than one legal entity within your organization? And that comes under the consolidated reporting requirements under the ACA. And those questions are going to walk you through that configuration. So that's very straightforward. And I'm going to go through some of those configuration components here in a minute just to show you what's there, what that populates. The second component is data. Obviously, the system has to know some things about your employees to be able to produce a 1095-C and let you know when they're eligible. So the data components that are required are employee information, so that's going to be name, address, SSN, employee ID, hire date, whether or not you've got them set up as a part-time or a full-time employee, department and position, I mentioned hire date, adjusted hire date, termination date if you terminated the employee, and then payroll transaction data. So that payroll transaction data is going to consist of pay transactions, so pay the employee for $80 in this particular pay period at this rate of pay. There's going to be deduction information. We deducted $75 for health insurance for this employee if they're enrolled in a plan, or there might also be a benefit transaction associated with that also for the employer's contribution to that premium, so that employee knows that you're helping pay for the insurance also. So that information is all going to come over from Dynamics SL directly. You're going to have the ability to export that data over. It's going to come over into the ACA system. So once you have the configuration done and bring your data over, then that's going to be it's going to start to populate the dashboards. Everything's going to be very transparent in real time. Okay, so there's a lot of other employers I mentioned that utilize this ACA system outside of the Dynamics world that we all live in, and so they have a separate process for bringing in data. You're going to be in a great group in the fact that your data is going to come over from Dynamics SL, much like we've done within Dynamics GP as well. So that'll be a very efficient process for you. Now, as we look at the dashboard, you'll see that some things light up. And I mentioned that those come up as soon as the configuration is done, as well as the data is brought in. So let's take a look at some things related to configuration. And the reason that we show this is because it typically helps answer some questions as far as how you get the system to do those things. So let's start with standard measurement periods. Now, the examples that we always show are employers using a look-back eligibility method where you're going back and looking at variable hour employees to determine if they worked 130 hours or averaged 130 hours of service in a month per year over the course of a look-back period, typically 1 year. And so you have the ability, and this will be done through the wizard, but setting up the standard measurement period. So in this case, I've got my stability period, which coincides with my plan year, to be running on the calendar year, so 1/1 to 12/31. There's a 3-month administrative period, 10/1 to 12/31, and the 12-month look back, which is a standard measurement period, is 10/1 to 9/30. So what the system's going to do is be able to, throughout the year, keep track of eligibility, even do some forecasting for some variable hour employees. The idea is that you'll be able to know real time, all the time, as often as you want anyway, how you're doing from an ACA compliance perspective, okay? And not have to really kind of sweat it out at the end of the year, not knowing if you did it right or well, and then of course having to do all the form generation. Let's talk about newly hired variable hour employees. They'll go through what's called the initial measurement period. Remember, full-time employees, they'll go through a waiting period. We'll look at that in just a minute. Part-time employees go through an initial measurement period, especially if you're using the look-back measurement method. If you're using a monthly measurement method, we'll just evaluate those variable hour employees each month. So in our look-back method, we've got the initial measurement period set to be a 12-month, 1-month, and 12-month process. Now, you may not be familiar, you may be doing these processes in a little bit different way, so it might be new to see them set up in a system. The feedback that we get is that this is very easy to use. The configuration is very straightforward. And so don't be, I guess, daunted by, wow, I've got to remember to do all these things. Again, the wizard's going to walk you through this process. I didn't figure you wanted to see me type through the wizard, so I'm just showing you what we've already got set up here. All right, so we've got the initial measurement period. Next we'll look at company setup. Now obviously you can have multiple EINs because a lot of your organizations do consist of, are comprised up and made up of multiple individual unique EINs, multiple legal entities. From an ACA point of view, those all have to be reported together in an authoritative 1094-C that goes to the IRS, in addition to them being reported individually. All right, so here's the company setup. Basic information at the top. As we get towards the middle, current standard measurement period, previous standard measurement period. The default control group. Control group is just a way to relate EINs together for reporting purposes. So if you're an HR person that has to, and you're responsible for the reporting of 2 of the 5 EINs within the organization, you could use that control group to report across those 2 organizations. There's our eligibility method we've been talking about, the look back versus the monthly. I've got that selected to look back. Our current least cost plan that we're offering to employees within this company, the current federal poverty line, the initial stability period start date. Do we make the lowest cost plan available to all employees? Do we require waivers if we offer coverage and an employee doesn't accept that or enroll in that? So remember, when you're talking about the employer mandate and ACA, it's really more about the offer of coverage to make sure that you're offering coverage to those eligible employees. Whether or not an employee enrolls is important, and we account for that on the 1094-C, and that's some of the information that's gathered through those deduction and benefit transactions that come over from Dynamics SL from the payroll components. And so it'll know if an employee is enrolled, because that's going to impact line 16 of that 1095-C, and in some cases some other lines as well. All right, so you've got your full-time waiting period. I've just got it set to 60 days here. I've set it to 2 months, whatever you'd like to do. And then you've got a few other options as well. And one important option is this credit hours based on. That usually comes up in a question. So for example, if you're running payroll on a biweekly cycle and you have a pay period with you've got maybe you're running payroll this Friday and you've got some of that pay period that's in November and some of that pay period that's in October. Well, how would the system know in which month to credit those hours from an eligibility perspective? Well, what it's going to do based on this setting is spread those over the pay period. So if we run 80 hours in a payroll for an employee on November 4th, it's going to prorate their hours. Some of those are going to get credited into November, and some are going to get credited back into October. So when you run an eligibility report for October, it'll be as accurate as possible. Not all 80 hours are going to get posted in October or November. It's going to split them up. So I just want to highlight that since that usually comes up as a question. Now when your payroll transactions come over, the system's going to see specific plan codes identified in deductions, and some of those are even going to be included in your wizard as you configure the system. So let's take a look at how we configure those from an ACA perspective. All right, so what we have here is a plan that we're offering. This happens to be our least cost plan. Could have multiple plans. You'll even see features related to offering different plans to different groups of employees within an EIN. If you've got a complex population of employees that get offered different plans in different locations or different departments specifically, you can certainly do that. We're just going to focus on a simple example here so you can see how the system functions. But you'll see by year we are assigning ACA attributes to this plan. So, for example, is this a qualifying offer? Does it provide minimum essential coverage and minimum value? Who does it cover? What's the start and end date of the plan? What's the federal poverty line we're using for our affordability calculations? Is this a least cost plan? Is it a self-insured plan? Is it what's the self-only cost of coverage? And so on. So that's very easy. Now, as you went through the process in 2015, you're probably thinking, hey, these sound familiar. Is this a non-qualified, minimum essential coverage, minimum value, doesn't cover the spouse? And if you're good, you might say, well, that sounds like a 1C type of offer. And maybe you just did it way too much. But what this is doing is setting up the attributes about those plans that are offered. So in fact, the system will know what code to put on the 1095-C. Now here's where it all starts to come together. So the payroll transactions that are coming over from Dynamics SL, the system's going to know, and that data, for example, if the employee is full-time, as identified in Dynamics SL, and knows their start date, they know when they come to the end of the waiting period, it'll alert you to the fact that they're at the end of their waiting period, and then it'll assume that you've offered them that coverage. And it'll even know which plan you've offered, probably going to be the least cost plan. And again, that's your requirement as an employer to do that. So the system has the information to know when the employee was offered coverage, and the system has the information to know from an ACA perspective what plan was offered. So the system now has enough information to populate that 1095-C without you having to go in and say, this particular employee, 1C, all 12 months, they enrolled or didn't enroll, What was the cost? You don't have to do any of those steps. And that's a key point that I want to make sure that we emphasize and that you capture from the webinar, is that the system is going to automate that process of populating the 1095-C for you. We're going to look at some examples here in a few minutes. All right, so that's the plan setup. And again, some of this will be driven through the wizard. Some of this you'll have to finish up after you import the data or bring the data over from Dynamics SL. But again, very easy to do. All right, so we've got the configuration done, got the data here. Let's go back to the dashboard and start to look at some specific ways that the system is being proactive and telling us what we need to do from an ACA perspective throughout the year. So you'll see the dashboard here. You see some alerts. It's telling us the number of employees without coverage. If there's any employees that have completed their initial measurement period as a newly hired variable hour employee, and you can view the report to see exactly what the result of that is. So let's take a look at these alerts just to give you a feel for how the system is helping you. Okay, so as we look at the alerts, you'll see a green alert at the top. That's going to be something that isn't a showstopper. It's not severe. It's informational. There's an eligible variable hour employee, so that employee may well be enrolled, but their hours are showing that they may not be eligible anymore, or you may be able to withdraw that offer of coverage. Now, some of that's going to depend on whether or not that employee is in a stability period. So if you're using the monthly measurement method, that's going to be more applicable. If you've offered coverage and the employee is in a stability period, obviously you won't be able to withdraw that offer of coverage right away. You can view the details of that and also check these off so that the alerts go away. Now down below is a red alert. Obviously that's more severe. There's a full-time employee that has completed their waiting period. So that means you need to offer them coverage. So you could click on complete, put in a note that says offered coverage, and go from there. You don't have to enter a note. That doesn't drive any downstream processes or anything. It just lets you have that record if you need to. All right, so let's talk about some other ways that the system is going to help you be proactive. Let's go ahead and go into ACA Reports. So here's something I want you to think about. If you've got a large population of part-time or variable hour employees, and let's think about new hires for a minute. At the end of 12 months, you're going to have to make a determination of whether or not those employees need to be offered coverage. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is probably keep an eye on them before they get to the end of that 12-month period. So we're going to look at a report called Initial Measurement Period Analysis. Okay, I want to set my date here a little bit in the future, but that's okay. You can run these at any time. You can look at them in reverse, go backwards if you want. So it's intended to provide you with this information throughout the year. So we're going to take a look at this Initial Measurement Period Analysis report. And by the title, that may not mean much. But really what this is, think of this as a forecast, because what it's going to do is tell you how these newly hired variable hour employees are progressing through their initial measurement period. So you've got employees in here with various months of service and various hours of service. And over on the right-hand side, you can see that the system is producing a forecast on what it thinks their eligibility is going to be at the end of their 12-month initial measurement period. All right, so the first employee been with the organization for 10 months, it's got them forecasted at part-time. That's just based on the average hours per week as well as the average hours per month. So let's go down to a couple of easy examples. Harley Carson, 1 month of service, 135.75 hours. Now, that's greater than 130 hours of service. We're in a look-back measurement eligibility method. And so what it's doing is determining the average hours per month, which of course over 1 month is 135.75. So it's forecasting that this employee will be full-time if that average continues. On the other side of the coin, we have Alex, 1 month of service, 104 hours of service. That's the average still, 104, since it's just over 1 month. So it's forecasting Alex at part-time. As you scroll down, you'll see a lot of employees with 6 months of service, some full-time, some part-time. What this enables you to do is manage the process. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that there's 29 total employees in their initial measurement period. 13 of which are currently forecasted towards full-time. Maybe you look at that 13 number and you say, that's a good number. Maybe you look at that 13 number and say, no way, we can't offer 13 more employees coverage at the end of the year or at the end of their initial measurement period. And so now you know that information, and now you can manage that process. If it's changing schedules, if it's whatever you need to do to impact that, you now have that information now versus once the employee completes that process, and maybe you've got this big batch of employees and all of this that you haven't kept track of, and then all of a sudden you've got to offer 15 of them coverage. Okay, that's expensive. So this is managing your risk on the other side of the equation, which is you're going to make sure you're offering coverage to the right employees, but also making sure you're not offering coverage to too many employees. It's going to be a risk to your budget. All right. Now let's stay on this this group of newly hired variable hour employees. And the next information would show up on the dashboard also, but it's a quick evaluation to understand, okay, which employees completed their initial measurement period, and do I need to offer them coverage? So think about that question and think about how you're answering that question today. And maybe you're not. Maybe you're just not tracking it that close, which leaves you exposed for a penalty. But this is a very easy, I put in the wrong date. So this is going to provide that answer for you very quickly. At least I think I put in the wrong date. Okay. So what this is going to show are employees that come to the end of their initial measurement period. That's what I was looking for. 2 employees. They both test out as part-time. So if these employees, remember this is a 12-month initial measurement period, so if they had averaged 130 hours per month in those 12 months, then we would need to offer them coverage. That magic number here would be 1560. If they had reached 1560, they would show as full-time. You need to offer them coverage and continue through the process. These employees don't need to be offered coverage. They will now fall into our standard measurement testing process that we'll do for variable hour employees at the end of the year. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at that now because that's important. And again, as you're looking at the rest of the variable hour employees, so you've got part-time employees that have been there for years, they have to be tested to see whether or not you need to offer them coverage. And you'll see some other reports in here that we're not going to cover today also. Okay, so we're going to run this for the full 12 months. And again, you could run this report whenever you need to produce a forecast for the rest of the employees that are part-time also. But let's take a look here. We're at the end of the year. We're doing this for a full 12 months. This is going to tell us who we need to offer coverage to from a part-time employee perspective. And again, very quickly, the system is producing this information for us based on that configuration and the payroll data that's coming over from Dynamics SL. All right. So let's take a look here. Here's a pretty good list of employees. So if we look at Dusty, Dusty is a part-time employee coming over from Dynamics SL. That's how you've designated them, their employment type. But Dusty worked or has 1,695 hours of service in that 12-month period. That average is greater than 130 hours, which puts Dusty into a full-time ACA status. That means you've got to offer Dusty coverage, health insurance, for the next 12 months, that next stability period. Okay, so if we fast forward into that next year and produce a 1095-C for that employee, it would show that that employee's offered coverage and what the nature of that coverage is, whether it's a 2C or a 1A on the 1095-C. And then it's going to know whether or not that employee enrolled in that coverage. So what code should go on line 16? 2G if they're not enrolled, based on the plan that I have set up, or 2C, the employee is enrolled in the plan that we offered. And again, it's really about the offer of coverage, but then the system, the 1095-C does need to dictate whether or not the employee is enrolled. All right, so very quickly, and you could bring this into Excel, filter it down. It's 9 clicks to filter it down to just show the full-time employees that you need to offer coverage to. All right, so what we've done so far, we've done configuration. We've brought in the data from Dynamics SL and looked at the dashboards. It's told us about specific situations that we need to address. We've also run some reports to make sure that we're offering coverage in a timely manner. Remember the penalty structure under the ACA is by month, so it coincides with the reporting requirements by month. So when you do that 1095-C at the end of the year, it's broken down monthly. And so you need to be on top of this at least each month. And so we've talked about the reports that you can utilize to help you with that. So now let's talk about the year-end process. Right, we'll go under, first of all, I do want to show you a couple things that's going to tie into that. So under ACA maintenance, you will see employee information, you'll see payroll transaction data. So that's the data that's coming over from SL, and you'll see all that there. So it's very transparent, and of course I mentioned that it's real time. You'll also need to set the 1094-C prerequisites, which are just providing some ACA specific information about your company. Right, you'll also have the ability to do a 1095-C preview throughout the year, and I'm going to come back to this window here in just a minute after we get through the year-end process. Right, so we wanted to show you the 1094-C prerequisite. That's the first step in the year-end process. Under Utilities, you'll see the year-end close in the lower left-hand corner. Just click on that, show you what that's about. Okay, you do it by year. So control group and year, so you can do multiple companies at once. This is the new feature that's just being added as we prepare for year-end processing. Okay, so you could create that 1095 or run that year-end process. And that's just going to take a few minutes for that to complete. If you have 20,000 employees, it's going to take a little bit longer. Our testing is showing that that takes, and some reports back from some employers that we work with, is that that process could take a few hours for upwards of that many employees. But in this situation, for example, in this environment, I have 326 employees. The year-end process took 4 minutes. Okay, so that should give you a little bit better indication. So I did the year-end close. We can go ahead and print the 1095-Cs. The 1095-Cs are also going to show up under back under the ACA maintenance. So let's take a look at that. Now this could be what you utilize to review the 1095-Cs. So if we just look at a specific example here, I can select this, and this is a new feature that we just enabled. Preview the 1095-C. Okay, it's just showing it in a very simple format. If you want to change the address, you could do that right here. Very easy to utilize and maintain the 1095-C information once it's created. Now obviously this isn't the form. When you go to the, at the end of the year, as you're preparing to produce the forms to send to the employees, you'll go under Reports, ACA Reports, IRS Forms, 1095-C, 1095-C that fits nicely into a W-2 envelope, the 1094-C, and the 1095-C instructions also. And so the 1095-C process takes a few minutes, so what I did was I created them just beforehand. So here are the 1095-Cs all formatted. Let me go back to the beginning. Okay, so did it too long ago now, it's not cache, but you saw the form. It's already formatted and everything, so you don't have to print it on, you don't have to get form stock. It'll print directly on blank paper, and it'll be all ready to go, all ready to print. You can email those 1095-Cs directly to the employees from within the system, or you can utilize fulfillment services that we provide, which will again give you the ability to say, yes, I want you to take care of the fulfillment process. So what we'll do is print those, put them in an envelope, and mail them to the employees on your behalf, and that'll all be taken care of. All right, so that's the 1095-C. The next thing that you may need to do from an ACA perspective is also e-file. So if we look at the e-filing process, the e-filing process is built in to the ACA system. The credentialing component with the IRS, the infamous TCC account, is already taken care of. You don't have to worry about that. So when we go to IRS Filing, okay, you will see your year-end files that were created in the year-end process. Highlight those, send to the IRS. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to supply any additional security information or anything like that that you're utilizing our credentials with the Internal Revenue Service to submit this information in. So once you submit that, you press the Send to IRS button. I'm not going to do that, obviously. And then you can come into the IRS filing activity. Okay, so what this is going to do is show your submission to the IRS and any information that the IRS is sending back. For example, if you have an SSN error or anything like that, that would show up. So it's all right in front of you. It's all real time. All the information is available. You know what's going on at all times. There's no guessing of, well, I don't know if that really got submitted or not. It kind of went into e-filing la-la land or whatever. You'll know exactly what's going on with your submission to the IRS, to the point to where you can create and download your retention package, which are the data elements that get sent to the IRS for your permanent records. All right, here's the ability to email the employees and so on. So what we've done so far is we've talked about configuration and doing that through the wizard. I've showed you the some of the key configuration items. We've talked about the data that comes over from Dynamics SL. We've talked about how the system understands through that all those pieces of information what's going on with the employee from an ACA perspective, and how that prevents you from having to go in to each individual employee and track codes or do anything like that. On the 1095-C, if you saw it real quick before I pushed the button and it went away, the codes were already there. It's already filled out. You don't have to touch those codes. You just review the 1095-Cs, and if you need to make a couple of changes because of an anomaly with an employee, you can very easily do that. So we created the 1095-C. You can print the 1094-C in much the same way, e-file. So the entire process from hey, the employee is hired, when do they need to be offered coverage, to e-filing. Okay, a couple other quick things I'll show you before we go back to the PowerPoint and answer questions. You have role-based security. So that e-filing window, you keep pretty tight security on. Running reports, you might have a few users within your organization that do that. It's unlimited users. So not that you have a lot of people that are really wanting to get in on the ACA compliance project, but if you've got multiple people on your team that are helping with that, you can certainly set up those users and their specific role and security. If you want to set up audit logs, so for example, who pressed the Send to IRS button, you can have an audit log for that. Who's editing 1095-C data, perhaps. So keeps track of who made changes where. And again, you drive what you need to track. Okay. So lots of great tools here related to usability. You've seen the dashboard. In addition, I want to show you just a couple quick things, and then we'll go back. One is that we do provide a lot of information related to the ACA, just from the perspective of here's what's going on. Here's information about the new codes that are coming out for 2016. So you've got, we have ACA user groups and ongoing webinars where we provide additional information. Some of them are just really a Q&A, just to help answer questions. And then we're always publishing information on the blog posts and so on. Just as again, as we're attending the IRS calls and our support team and compliance team is learning what's new, we're providing that information out to make sure that you're all aware of it, so you know how to put that in context with using the system that we provide also. All right, let's go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the question box in the GoToWebinar. Looks like we have one so far, but certainly we'll feel free to add many more. All right, next steps. Certainly get at answers to outstanding questions. I believe there's some additional information on the Plumbline website as well. You can certainly contact your Microsoft reseller or Valerie for a quote related to pricing of the ACA solution. You can place your order through that Microsoft reseller that you have in place, or again, you can contact Valerie if you need additional information on that. You can begin the implementation right away. So we mentioned the wizard. There's a lot of tutorials there. We do provide some implementation services and training as well. So they've got several options there. Regardless of which one you choose, you can begin that process right away. the goal, number 5, cruise through ACA compliance reporting for 2016. That's what we've really tried to do for the employers we've been working with. That's what we want to help you do as well. So we want it to be a process that you can complete efficiently in a timely manner and do it well. And for everybody, 2015 was a big learning curve. It was a big learning curve for us that were involved on the technology side also. But a big learning curve for employers, and it was frustrating and it was difficult, and so we want to, as you know more now, the learning curve isn't so steep. What we want to try to do is help you optimize that process internally. All right, again, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in. We'll get to those in just a second. As we do that, we want to say thank you. We got Valerie's information there. We got my information also. If you have questions, again, you can talk to your Microsoft reseller. You can also talk to Valerie and view information on the Plumbline website. We'll be happy to help. And at this point, I'm going to start looking at questions. You guys are taking me up on the, on the instruction to add questions, so that's good. Let's start looking at those. Okay. The first question from Melissa, can we email the 1094-C, and I think you're referring to the 1095-C, to the employee as an attachment? Yes, that's going to be emailed as an attachment, as a PDF attachment, Alyssa, so that is an option within the system for you to email those 1095-Cs to the employee. That's a good question. All right, next question from Julie. We are self-insured, thus we need to list all dependents. How is that handled? That's a great question. Dependents can come over a couple different ways. A lot of times what we see with self-insured employers is the dependent information in their payroll HR system is okay, but sometimes isn't fully maintained. So we do have the option for you to bring over that dependent information in an upload process through the user interface from your third-party administrator of that self-funded plan. So certainly if you are self-insured, there's a couple different ways to get that dependent information in, either coming over from the payroll HR system or being uploaded through what ends up being a text file into the ACA system. That's in the user interface. There's an upload and import component. Dependents are part of that, and so you can bring that up.
Dan, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Valerie.
Okay,
Sure, yep.
So Julie, also for people who own the Plumbline Consulting's ACA module and had the self-insured option, we are working on a one-time push to get those dependents that you had set up in our system already and push them out of SL screen and into the integrity data for the first time when you initially set up the integrity data software, and then you would maintain those dependents in the integrity data solution moving forward. But we are going to work on getting a push of the information that you entered last year out of the system and into integrity data.
Yep, and that was Norma's question, was getting that dependent information from the Plumbline ACA into the system.
Correct. So that's what we are working on it. As soon as the connector is complete, then we will work on the push files for those, because I know there's a number of people on this call who were self-insured and had all those dependents already into the system. So we are going to work on a solution for you guys to be able to push that data out and push it in, and that's not like any additional cost or anything. It will be part of your implementation.
Okay, so the next question, what happens to the monthly data already entered into the ACA module purchased last year from Plumbline? Can this data be grabbed and input?
Ooh, and I don't know about that. And Terry, I will find out if there's going to be a way to export the already existing data. I'm not sure how that would work. So I would have to, I will find out about that for you.
Okay, a couple new questions. Next question from Warren, what happened to the Plumbline ACA solution?
The Plumbline ACA solution that we originally had is discontinued, as we've partnered with Integrity Data to take over the solution and to provide the SL community with their solution moving forward. The the discontinue was due to the ever-changing ACA environment and the need to have an actual ACA, what's the word I'm looking for, specialist, or people who I totally blanked there.
To it every day.
Yeah, people who are certified in ACA and have a whole team of people working on ACA all the time, and that's what Integrity Data does. And so we've partnered with them and discontinued our software to be able to provide theirs to the SL community.
Okay. Good. Next question from Michael. We offer post-retirement health insurance, so we have people who need a filing but are not part of our payroll in SL. Would those people just be added manually in your system? So that's a great question, Michael. Yeah, so a couple things. One is if they're inactive in your SL payroll system, they could come over and that be just even as an inactive employee. Retirees and COBRA participants can fall into the same category, primarily if you're self-insured. And in your case, the 1095-C is really serving as a 1095-B for those particular participants. So yes, you can account for those. If they're not there, you can bring them up through a separate process to be able to produce the forms and include them in all your filings and so on. So those are all accommodated. We've got a lot of employers, we've got a lot of self-insured employers, obviously specifically, that have had to deal with that in the past, so that's all well and accounted for within the ACA system. Okay. Next question. Do you retain the data from SL? And so, Alyssa, I'm not sure if you're referring to some of the existing ACA capabilities or the payroll data that's coming over. The payroll data, I'm going to answer it from the perspective of the payroll data. That data will come over and be within the system and will stay there until you decide you want to get rid of that, or whatever that case might be. That's going to be used just for producing your eligibility reports and, of course, the 1095-C at the end of the year. So if that answers your question, that's,
if not,
that data will stay there.
If you're thinking, if you're referring to the data that you had entered into the Plumbline ACA module, that data will stay there until whatever you do with it. We are not, you're not going to be updating anything in SL. Every update and everything you're going to be doing moving forward with ACA will be done in the Integrity Data solution. So if you're talking about the one-time push of the dependent information, once you've pushed it out into Integrity Data, you don't need to upkeep it in SL anymore, if that's what you're referring to.
Okay. The next question from Kyle. Can the 1095-C be printed locally and mailed by employer instead of using fulfillment services? Yes, absolutely. So the 1095-C will be completely formatted. You saw it flash pretty quickly on your screen. Sorry about that. But yes, it'll be printed locally. It'll print out you print it on blank paper, and then you can mail that yourself. Yep, you don't have to use fulfillment services. It's just an additional option. Okay, good question. The next question, should the data not be available to be quote-unquote grabbed, would there be an option to update the transmittal page only just to process this year's 2016? As far as I'm aware, the only change is reserved in the 2016 year. All employee info would still be correct. Yeah, there are some code changes. So I'm going to a couple of questions there. Good questions. If the data can't be grabbed, there are other ways to bring up data for purposes of filing. To answer that question, there are some code changes. There's a new 1J and 1K codes for the conditional offers. There's a couple of other minor changes, but then it's, as you mentioned, there are just some form changes, changing it to 2016, for example. So yeah, you could do that if you've already got it figured out. That is an option for the filing process. A little different. That's really that's not the way that the system is built. The system is built to be a comprehensive solution that helps you throughout the year. obviously we've gotten into situations where, especially last year, where the employer said, hey, I've already got the 1095Cs done. I just need the e-file, for example. And so we have worked in some ways to do that. Okay, follow-up from Terry. Yes, so as you allude to in your question, Terry, yes, some of that data could be brought over. I think you still want to make sure that that information is accurate, because it could, unless you have a very stable workforce, there could be some changes in the 1095C data. But again, there are some employers out there that don't have many part-time employees at all, if any, very stable workforce, not much turnover. So the 1095Cs in that regard can be pretty straightforward. And if you just want to bring in some of that information for filing purposes, that can be accommodated. Okay. I don't see any additional questions at the moment. We'll certainly stick around for a couple of minutes in case those come up. I do, again, want to say thank you. We hope that this was useful for you. Feel free to provide feedback. I know Valerie will probably be following up with you as well after the fact and sending out some additional information. If you have questions, obviously let us know, and we'll be happy to help. Valerie, do you have any additional comments to provide before we wrap up?
Again, thank you guys, everybody, for attending and giving us the ability to show you what the integrity data software can do for you in your ACA filing. I'm going to provide a YouTube link with the today's recording, so you can review it, pass it on to anybody that you would like, or just if you have any questions, anything moving forward. Again, my contact information is on the screen, as well as please reach out to your Microsoft partner, as they could all help you in this process. We really do appreciate you attending today, so thanks again, and let us know if you have any questions. Dan, I'm going to stop the recording now, okay?
Okay.